The snow fell heavily upon the cold palace courtyard. Each flake landed soundlessly against my blood-soaked robes. I knelt beneath the vermilion terrace like a criminal awaiting execution, though I had once been the most honored noblewoman in the capital. My fingers trembled against the frozen stone floor, not from fear, from poison. The wine they had forced down my throat burned through my veins like molten iron. Around me stood the palace servants, who once bowed so low they dared not raise their eyes in my presence. Now they stared openly, their expressions filled with mockery, pity, or relief. No one spoke for me. No one dared. The palace lanterns swayed beneath the storm winds, casting shifting gold across the long crimson stairs above me. And there they stood, the two people who had ruined my life, my husband and my younger sister. Crown Prince Xiao Jingyan stood beneath the imperial canopy in dark golden robes embroidered with 4 clawed dragons. His handsome face remained as elegant as jade carved by heaven itself. The same face I had once loved enough to die for. Beside him leaned Shen Yurong, my sister, my half-sister, born from my father's favored concubine. She wore my phoenix hairpin, the one bestowed upon me by the Empress Dowager during my wedding ceremony. Now it rested proudly in her dark hair, while she smiled down at me with feigned sorrow. "Elder sister," she said softly, her voice gentle enough to deceive the heavens themselves, "why must you continue resisting? His Highness has already shown you mercy." Mercy? I nearly laughed. Had mercy tasted like poison? Did mercy look like betrayal? The iron chains around my wrists clinked as I slowly lifted my head. "You," my voice came out hoarse, "you poisoned me." Yurong's eyes instantly reddened with tears. That face, that innocent, delicate face, had fooled everyone for years, including me. "Your Highness," she whispered pitifully, clutching Zhao Jingyan's sleeve, "elder sister still refuses to repent." Repent? Repent for what? For helping Zhao Jingyan ascend to crown prince? For kneeling 3 days outside the imperial study, begging the emperor to spare his life after the failed military campaign? For offering my maternal family's military authority to strengthen his position? Or perhaps for discovering their affair? Zhao Jingyan descended the stairs slowly. Each step echoed through the silent courtyard. When he stopped before me, his boots were immaculate despite the snow, just as immaculate as the hands that destroyed my entire clan. His cold eyes lowered towards me without warmth. "You should have remained obedient," he said calmly. My nails dug into my palms. "Obedient?" I laughed weakly. Blood dripped from the corner of my lips. "You slaughtered the Shen family." At those words, the surrounding eunuchs lowered their heads further. The Shen family, my mother's clan, 3 generations of loyal military officials, executed for fabricated treason, 73 lives. Even the children had not been spared. I still remember my little cousin Shen Bao crying while imperial soldiers dragged him across the ancestral courtyard. He was only 6. Only 6. And Zhao Jingyan had watched the executions personally. "You forced me into this," he replied indifferently. "Because I discovered you sleeping with her?" I hissed. Yurong immediately collapsed to her knees beside him.
"Sister, please stop," she cried. "His Highness and I truly love each other. Why must you keep tormenting us?" Tormenting. The word struck me harder than the poison. How skillfully she twisted black into white. For years she had played the weak younger sister, while secretly stealing everything that belonged to me. My jewelry, my servants, my reputation, and finally, my husband. No, not husband. A beast wearing human skin. Zhao Jingyan crouched before me suddenly. His fingers gripped my chin with terrifying force. "Shen Qingli," he said quietly, "you should know your greatest mistake." I stared at him through blurred vision. "You were too intelligent." The poison spread deeper into my chest. Breathing became agony, yet his words hurt more. "I once intended to let you remain crown princess peacefully," he continued, "but you investigated matters you should not have touched." I understood instantly. The military funds, the secret alliance with the Minister of Revenue, the forged disaster relief accounts. He had feared me because I had discovered the corruption beneath his virtuous mask. Yurong moved closer and leaned gently against his shoulder, like a victorious queen. "Elder sister," she murmured sweetly, "you should not blame His Highness. A woman should know when to step aside." Step aside. The words carved into my heart. I stared at her face. This woman had once cried in my arms, claiming she feared the cold treatment within the manor. This woman had once called me the best elder sister in the world, and while I protected her, she sharpened the knife behind my back. "You truly think you've won," I whispered. Yurong smiled faintly. Then she touched her stomach. My entire body froze. "I forgot to tell, elder sister," she said softly, eyes gleaming with triumph. Her hand caressed her abdomen lovingly. "I am already carrying His Highness's son." The world went silent. Snow continued falling, but I felt nothing anymore. No cold, no pain. Only hatred. Endless hatred. I had married Zhao Jingyan for 7 years. 7 years, and never conceived a child. The palace blamed me endlessly for it. The Empress Dowager scolded me. Concubines mocked me. Officials pressured Zhao Jingyan to take more women. But only now did I realize the truth. The medicinal soups Yurong personally prepared for me, the incense she gifted me, the health tonics she urged me to drink. My fingers shook violently. "You barren wretch, did you truly think you deserved to stand beside him?" For the first time, I saw her true face completely. Ugly, greedy, venomous. I lunged toward her with all remaining strength, but before I could touch her, a sword pierced through my chest. Warm blood exploded across the snow. I looked downward slowly. The blade, Zhao Jiang's blade, driven directly into my heart. Pain consumed everything. He withdrew the sword expressionlessly while my body collapsed against the frozen ground. The snow beneath me turned scarlet. Beautiful. Almost beautiful enough to resemble blooming plum blossoms. My vision blurred rapidly. Above me, Zhao Jiang wrapped his cloak gently around Yurong's shoulders, protecting her from the cold, the same way he once protected me. What a joke! What a monstrous joke my life had become! Yurong leaned into his embrace and smiled down at me. "You should die obediently, elder sister." The poison and blood loss dragged me toward darkness. But in that final moment, I swore, if heaven granted me another chance, I would never love again, never sacrifice again, never protect these wolves wearing human faces. I would personally drag every single one of them into hell. My eyes closed slowly, and the last thing I heard was imperial eunuchs shouting, "The crown princess has breathed her last." Thunder exploded. I jolted upright violently. Air rushed into my lungs. My chest heaved desperately as if I had just escaped drowning. My hands flew toward my heart. No wound, no blood, no sword. I froze.
The familiar scent of sandalwood incense drifted through the room. Soft, golden sunlight filtered through silk curtains embroidered with magnolia flowers. I knew this room. No, impossible. My gaze snapped toward the bronze mirror nearby. The reflection staring back at me was young. Too young. Smooth skin, bright eyes, no exhaustion from palace struggles, no hollow grief. I stumbled off the bed. My breathing turned ragged. This room, this was my chamber within the Shen Manor, before marriage, before the Crown Prince, before everything. The doors suddenly opened. A maid hurried inside carrying a basin of warm water. "Miss," she exclaimed happily, "you're finally awake." I stared at her face. Bai Ji, my personal maid. Alive. Alive. Tears nearly surged from my eyes, but I forced them back immediately. Dead people did not return. Unless heaven truly pitied me. "What year is this?" I asked sharply. Bai Ji blinked in confusion. "Miss? What year?" "It is the 15th year of Emperor Chengde's reign." My heart slammed violently against my ribs. 15th year. 3 years before my marriage to Zhao Yangyan. 3 years before the destruction of the Shen family. 3 years before my death. I had returned. I had truly returned. My fingers slowly clenched. The heavens had opened their eyes at last. Bai Ji approached nervously. "Miss, are you unwell? The hunting banquet begins today. Madam said you must prepare quickly." The hunting banquet. My expression changed instantly. Of course, that cursed day, the day everything began in my previous life. At the imperial hunting grounds, the emperor would casually joke about arranging marriages among the young nobles. Zhao Yanyan had publicly chosen me that day, and I, like a fool blinded by love, had accepted joyfully. That single decision ruined my entire life. But now I knew the future, and suddenly I smiled. Not warmly, not gently, coldly. So cold that Bai Ji unconsciously stepped backward. In my previous life, Shen Yurong desperately wanted Zhao Yanyan, but lacked the courage to fight me openly. This time, I would personally step aside. No, I would hand him to her with my own hands. Let her marry that smiling devil. Let her become crown princess. Let her enjoy the glorious cage I once envied. After all, some gifts were actually curses, and this time I intended to watch them destroy each other slowly, very slowly. The imperial hunting grounds stretched across the western outskirts of the capital like a painting brushed by the gods themselves. Autumn maple leaves blazed crimson against distant mountains. War banners snapped violently beneath the wind. The scent of horses, pine wood, and burning incense drifted through the vast royal camp, while noble carriages lined the outer roads in endless procession. I sat quietly inside the Shen family carriage. My fingers rested calmly atop a warm jade hand warmer, but beneath the layers of fox fur and silk sleeves, my nails dug deeply into my palms. I had returned for only half a day, yet every familiar sight threatened to pull me back into memories soaked with blood. "Elder sister," a soft voice sounded beside me. I slowly turned my head, and there she was, Shen Yurong, 17 years old, young, delicate. Her face still carried the innocent beauty that deceived the entire capital in my previous life. She wore a pale pink ruquan embroidered with butterfly orchids, appearing gentle enough to melt beneath a strong wind. Who would believe such a woman could personally lace another's medicine with infertility herbs for 7 years? Who would believe those tearful eyes once watched 73 members of the Shen family executed without blinking? Yurong smiled sweetly. Sister, today the crown prince will certainly attend the banquet. Her cheeks reddened slightly. I heard many noble ladies have prepared performances for him. Ah, so even now she already coveted Zhao Jiangyan. In my previous life, I had been too blind to notice. I smiled faintly. You seem quite interested in His Highness. Her eyes widened immediately, as if embarrassed. I only spoke casually. Casually? No. Yurong had always been ambitious. She envied everything belonging to legitimate daughters: status, honor, marriage, affection. And Zhao Jiangyan represented the greatest prize within the capital. In my previous life, she secretly manipulated countless situations to bring herself closer to him after our marriage. This time, however, I intended to save her the trouble. The carriage suddenly slowed. Outside, servants announced respectfully, "The imperial hunting grounds have been reached." The moment those words fell, my heartbeat slowed unnaturally, because I remembered exactly what would happen today. Every word, every glance, every lie. The carriage curtain lifted. Cold autumn air rushed inward. Baiji helped me descend carefully onto the stone pathway, while nobles from various aristocratic families gathered beneath the massive royal banners ahead. Golden tents shimmered beneath sunlight. Imperial guards stood in disciplined rows, holding long spears. Musicians played elegant Guqin melodies near the banquet pavilion. Everything appeared peaceful, beautiful. Yet I knew this place would become the beginning of my destruction. "Miss Shen has arrived." Whispers immediately spread among the noble ladies nearby. Her beauty truly deserves the title of capital's first jewel. The crown prince has admired her for a long time. I heard the Empress Dowager favors her greatly. I ignored them all calmly. In my previous life, such praise filled me with pride. Now, it only sounded laughable. Beauty, talent, virtue. What use were those things if one lacked the ability to see monsters clearly? Qingli, a warm male voice suddenly sounded ahead. For one brief moment, my body stiffened instinctively. I lifted my eyes slowly, and there he stood beneath fluttering imperial banners, Zhao Jiangyan, young and handsome, his black robes embroidered with silver cloud patterns accentuated his elegant bearing, while his sword rested naturally against his waist. Many noble ladies nearby secretly blushed while lowering their gazes shyly. The future crown prince indeed possessed a face capable of deceiving the world, including me, especially me. In my previous life, merely seeing him smile had made my heart race uncontrollably. Now, I only remembered the sensation of his sword piercing my chest. My expression remained perfectly calm as I bowed politely.
Your Highness. His gaze lingered on me with obvious warmth. Why do you sound so distant today? He asked with a faint smile. Because I finally see you clearly. But naturally, I could not say that aloud. Instead, I lowered my lashes modestly. I merely fear overstepping propriety. Zhao Jingyan laughed softly. Before he could continue, a smaller figure suddenly approached timidly behind me. Greetings, Your Highness. Shen Yurong bowed gracefully, her cheeks lightly flushed. I saw Zhao Jingyan's eyes shift toward her briefly, only briefly, but I noticed, because this time I was watching carefully. Interesting. So even now he already found her pleasing. In my previous life, I had been too consumed by my own feelings to observe anything else. Yurong clutched her sleeves nervously. Your Highness's archery today will surely amaze everyone again. Zhao Jingyan smiled politely. You flatter me, second Miss Shen. Second Miss Shen. Just those 3 words caused Yurong's eyes to brighten subtly. I nearly laughed. How pitiful. A single sentence from him was enough to make her heart bloom. She truly resembled a moth rushing towards a flame. Very well, I would help her burn properly. The imperial horns suddenly sounded across the hunting grounds. Everyone immediately knelt. The emperor arrives. A grand procession approached beneath golden dragon banners. Emperor Chengde rode at the center upon a black warhorse, while ministers and princes followed behind. The atmosphere instantly became solemn. After formal greetings concluded, the royal banquet began. Noble families sat according to rank within the enormous pavilion, while dancers performed gracefully amid flowing music. Wine cups circulated endlessly. Laughter echoed frequently. And just like my previous life, the emperor eventually smiled toward the younger generation. Today is lively indeed. Emperor Chengde stroked his beard with amusement. This emperor recalls that many among you have already reached marriageable age. The noble ladies instantly lowered their heads shyly. Several ministers laughed knowingly. My fingers tightened slightly around my wine cup. Here it comes. In my previous life, Zhao Jingyan stood immediately after this sentence and publicly requested imperial permission to court me. That single moment transformed my fate forever. Beside me, Shen Yurong subtly straightened her posture. Nervous, hopeful. Poor thing. She probably dreamed of this moment countless times. Very well. I would help her burn properly. The imperial horns suddenly sounded across the hunting grounds. Everyone immediately knelt. The emperor arrives. I calmly raised my wine cup. Then Zhao Jingyan spoke the words that once made me happiest in the world. This son requests permission to pursue second sister. My voice suddenly interrupted him softly. The entire pavilion froze. Even Zhao Jingyan paused mid-sentence. Yurong blinked at me in confusion. I turned toward her with a gentle smile. Earlier, didn't you say you greatly admired His Highness? Her face instantly turned crimson. Sister. The surrounding noblewomen immediately exchanged curious glances. I continued calmly. His Highness is talented, handsome, and virtuous. Any woman would naturally admire him. Zhao Jingyan frowned faintly. Perhaps he sensed something unusual, but before he could speak, I stood gracefully from my seat and bowed toward the emperor. Your Majesty, I said softly, this daughter has always believed marriages should unite mutual affection. The emperor appeared amused. Oh, I smiled warmly toward Shan Yurong. My younger sister has admired His Highness quietly for many years. As her elder sister, how could I bear competing against her? The entire banquet exploded into whispers. Yurong stared at me in utter shock. Even Zhao Jingyan's expression stiffened visibly. In my previous life, I would have blushed with joy beneath his gaze. Now I merely found his confusion entertaining. The emperor laughed loudly. So that is the case? Yurong panicked instantly and knelt. Your Majesty, this subject daughter does not dare. Why not dare? I interrupted gently. I walked toward her slowly before helping her arise personally. Second sister, feelings are not shameful. Her entire body trembled slightly, because she could not understand. Why was I helping her? Why was I surrendering willingly? In her mind, I should have fought desperately for Zhao Jingyan's attention. But I simply smiled softly and adjusted the hairpin near her temple like a caring elder sister. "You like the Highness very much, don't you?" Yurong's lips parted speechless, and in that instant I saw greed flicker within her eyes. There it was, her true nature, hidden beneath innocence. She wanted him, desperately. "Then take him, please, take him quickly." Zhao Jingyan suddenly spoke. "Qingli." His tone had deepened slightly. The familiar possessiveness hidden beneath his gentle facade emerged unconsciously. Unfortunately for him, I no longer belonged to his game. I turned calmly toward him. "Your Highness?" He stared at me carefully. "Are you sincere?" That question almost made me laugh out loud. Sincere? Was he afraid his prized prey suddenly escaped? I lowered my gaze modestly. My sister's happiness naturally matters more. Those words immediately moved several noblewomen nearby. What a loving elder sister.
Miss Shen truly possesses exceptional virtue. Second Miss Shen is truly fortunate. Fortunate? No, she was walking willingly into hell, and I was personally opening the gates for her. Yurong finally recovered from her shock enough to look at Zhao Jingyan timidly. The prince remained silent for several moments. Then, slowly, he smiled. That smile, that elegant, refined smile capable of deceiving the world. Second Miss Shen is indeed gentle and charming, he said calmly. Yurong nearly stopped breathing. Joy flooded her face so obviously that even nearby ministers noticed. My heart remained utterly still. In my previous life, hearing those words directed toward another woman would have shattered me. Now I simply found it amusing, because I alone knew the future. I alone knew what kind of monster Zhao Jingyan truly was, and Sen Yurong, like a starving fool clutching stolen gold, had happily seized the cursed blade herself. Excellent. Very excellent. The banquet resumed shortly afterward, yet the atmosphere had changed completely. Noble ladies surrounded Yurong endlessly with envy and congratulations. She became the center of attention, exactly as she always desired. Meanwhile, I sat quietly drinking tea, peacefully. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt free. Then, suddenly, I sensed someone watching me. My gaze lifted calmly across the pavilion. At the distant corner near the ministers' seats sat a man dressed entirely in dark robes. Unlike the other princes, he lacked luxurious embroidery or jeweled ornaments. His wheelchair rested partially hidden within shadow. A silver mask covered the upper half of his face, and though he appeared isolated from the lively banquet, his eyes were fixed directly at me. Cold, sharp, dangerous, like a blade hidden beneath still water. My breathing paused slightly, because I recognized him instantly. The forgotten prince, the cripple abandoned by the imperial family, the man mocked by the entire capital as useless. Prince Zhao Xuande. In my previous life, he died quietly during factional struggles before ever rising to power, or so everyone believed. But shortly before my death, I accidentally discovered a terrifying secret. The true mastermind controlling the Empire's hidden military forces was him. The moment our eyes met across the banquet pavilion, the world around me seemed to fade. Laughter, music, wine cups, courtiers flattering each other, all of it became distant noise. Only that man remained clear. Zhao Xuande, the forgotten prince, the crippled waste the capital had already erased in their minds.
He sat half hidden beneath the outer canopy, where shadows pooled thickly, his wheelchair angled slightly away from the light, as if even the sun had forgotten to touch him. A silver mask covered the upper half of his face. Only his lower jaw was visible, sharp, calm, unreadable. But it was his eyes that made my breath slow. Not warmth, not curiosity.
Assessment, like a hunter watching something that had just stepped into his territory. I forced my expression to remain unchanged and lowered my gaze. So, he was still alive. In my previous life, I had barely registered his existence. A disabled prince with no influence, no military backing, no political future. Or so the court believed. But after my death, after my soul drifted in the cold darkness between lives, I had seen fragments, whispers, secret movements beneath the empire that even the crown prince feared. A black iron network of intelligence agents, silent assassinations that erased ministers overnight, border generals who obeyed an unknown command structure, and every thread led back to a name no one spoke aloud. Zhao Shu Wande, the man who should have been powerless, yet somehow held the empire's throat in the dark. My fingers tightened slightly around my sleeve. Interesting. So fate had placed him here before I even began my revenge. A eunuch's voice suddenly echoed across the pavilion. His Majesty requests the princes and young nobles display their archery. The atmosphere immediately shifted. Excitement returned. Young noblemen stood proudly, eager to impress the emperor. Zhao Jingyan rose confidently, adjusting his sleeve. His gaze flicked toward me briefly. Still evaluating, still assuming, still believing I was within his control. Beside him, Shen Yurong looked at him with undisguised admiration. She already stood where she wanted to be, one step from crown princess position, and she believed it was destiny. How laughable. I stood as well, but not to compete, not to display talent. In my previous life, I had once taken first place in archery at this very banquet. That victory had sealed Zhao Jingyan's interest in me. This time, I had no intention of shining. I walked past the training field instead, slowly, calmly. Beiji followed behind me nervously. "Miss, are you not participating?" I smiled faintly. No need. The bow competition erupted behind me as young noblemen drew arrows toward distant targets. Cheers followed Zhao Jingyan's perfect shot. As expected, he always performed flawlessly in public, a perfect mask. I continued walking until I reached a quieter section near the outer tents where supply attendants moved hurriedly. Here the noise softened. The air smelled of horses and pine resin. And then I stopped, not because of beauty, not because of solitude, but because of opportunity. A small group of imperial medical attendants stood near a supply table, discussing herbs for injured hunters. Their conversation was careless. Fragments of information drifted toward me. To Prince Jingyan's injury last month healed quickly thanks to the imported ginseng. To Second Miss Shen has been sending medicinal tonics to His Highness. Strange, the herbs from the southern caravans are far more expensive this season. I listened silently. Every piece of information mattered. In my previous life, I had lived like a butterfly trapped in a golden cage. This life, I would build my own cage. Or rather, I would build the empire beneath the empire. "Miss," Baiji's voice broke my thoughts. I turned. She looked uneasy. "You've been acting different since this morning." I studied her carefully. Loyal, simple-minded, but trustworthy. In my previous life, she had been beaten to death after I fell from grace, accused of being my accomplice. I exhaled slowly. "Baiji," I said calmly, If I told you the Shen family would one day be destroyed, what would you think? Her eyes widened instantly. Miss, that is treasonous. I raised a finger slightly. She stopped. I watched her carefully. Her loyalty was real, but her understanding was limited. That was fine. I did not need her to understand everything, only to follow. I softened my tone slightly. Forget I said it. She nodded quickly, though her expression remained troubled. I turned my gaze toward the distant hunting field again. Zhao Jingyan had just released another arrow. Perfect hit. Crowd applause. Yu Rong's admiring gaze. Everything unfolding exactly as before. But I was no longer looking at him. I was looking past him, toward the shadowed edge of the pavilion, where Zhao Shudande still sat watching. And this time I deliberately met his gaze again. A pause, a breath, then a faint movement. The corner of his lips curved slightly. Not a smile of warmth, not approval, something far more dangerous. Amusement, as if he had finally confirmed something. My chest tightened subtly. He noticed me, not as Shen Qingli, favored noble daughter, but as something else, something that had changed. I looked away first, not because I was afraid, but because it was not yet time. That night, the Shen manor was quiet. Lanterns glowed softly along the corridors as servants prepared hot water and incense for the household. I sat alone in my chamber, ink, paper, and a map of capital trade routes spread across the table. Bai Ji stood nearby, holding a lamp. "Miss, why are you drawing merchant routes?" I did not look up. "Because I intend to earn money." She blinked. "Noble daughters do not—"
I know. My brush moved steadily. The Shen family estate depends on imperial favor. That is unstable. Bai Ji fell silent. I continued marking points across the map. Salt routes, silk distribution, medicine caravans, weapons smuggling corridors disguised as grain shipments. In my previous life, I had never cared about such things. Now I understood something simple. Power required structure, and structure required resources. Zhao Jingyan had military backing and imperial favor. Shen Yurong would soon have him. That meant I needed something else, something quieter, something invisible. Money, information, and leverage. A knock interrupted my thoughts. "Miss," a servant announced outside, "Second Miss Yurong requests to see you." My brush paused. Then I smiled faintly. So quickly. She could not even wait a full day. "Let her in." The door opened. Shen Yurong entered wearing a silk robe slightly looser than usual, her face carrying an expression of forced calm. But her eyes betrayed everything: excitement, ambition, and impatience. "Elder sister," she greeted sweetly. I gestured to the seat across from me. "Sit." She hesitated briefly before obeying. Her gaze drifted immediately toward the map on my table. "What is this?" "Nothing important." She smiled gently, but I saw her curiosity sharpen. Then she leaned forward slightly. "Sister, about today." I tilted my head. "Yes." Her fingers tightened around her sleeve. "Why did you give His Highness to me?" There it was, the question she could not suppress. I studied her quietly. "Because you want him, because you are greedy, because you believe yourself chosen." But I answered differently. "Because I do not want him." Her expression froze,
as if that possibility had never existed in her mind. "You don't want him?" I smiled faintly. "Do you think I would compete for something I can simply step aside from?" Her lips parted. Confusion flickered. Then doubt. "Good." I continued softly. "Second sister, you should cherish this opportunity." "Opportunity?" I leaned slightly closer. "My sister marrying into the Crown Prince household is a blessing beyond measure." Her eyes brightened instantly. Of course, that was the only part she heard. Blessing, status, crown princess. She swallowed hard, trying to hide her excitement. "I will not disappoint you," she said quickly. I nodded gently. "I believe you." And I truly did. She would not disappoint me. She would exceed every expectation, in ways she could not yet imagine. A silence lingered. Then she stood abruptly. "I should prepare more carefully," she said, unable to hide her eagerness any more. Before leaving, she hesitated, then looked back. "Elder sister, are you truly not upset?" For a brief moment, I almost told her the truth, that I had already died once because of that man, that I watched her smile while my heart was pierced, that I burned in hatred long before she ever touched this timeline. But instead, I simply said, "No." She left relieved, and I sat alone again. The candle flickered softly. I exhaled slowly. The first step was complete. Shen Yurong was now firmly on the path to Zhao Ziyan. The trap was no longer theoretical. It was in motion. Now, I needed to prepare for what came next, because Zhao Xuande had looked at me, and men like him did not look without reason, especially not at people who had already changed fate. Outside my window, the wind shifted through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a raven called once. I closed the map gently. "This time," I whispered into the silence, "no one will write my ending for me." And far beyond the walls of the Shen Manor, in a shadowed palace chamber no one visited, a silver-masked man set down a folded intelligence report. On it was one line written in ink: "Shen Qingli is different from before." 3 days after the hunting banquet, the capital exploded with news. The crown prince had begun showing favor towards Shen Yurong. Jewelry from the Eastern Palace arrived at the Shen Manor before sunrise. Silk from Suzhou, rare pearls from the Southern Sea, even a jade yuyi blessed personally by the Empress Dowager. Servants whispered endlessly. Madame Chen, the concubine-born mother of Shen Yurong, walked through the manor with her chin lifted so high one would think she had already become empress herself. As for Shen Yurong, she transformed overnight into the most envied young lady in the capital. Every noble household invited her to tea gatherings. Every noble woman tried currying favor with her. And each time she passed me within the manor, her smile became slightly brighter, slightly more victorious, like someone slowly convincing herself she had finally won. I merely watched quietly, because I knew something she did not. The crown prince's affection was poison wrapped in silk. The closer she moved toward him, the closer she walked toward ruin. "Miss," Baiji whispered while helping me arrange medicinal herbs inside my chamber, "second miss has become unbearable lately." I glanced calmly at the scattered herbs before me. Licorice root, dried lotus heart, mountain ginseng, all priceless ingredients. Yet, in my previous life, I had only used them to maintain Zhao Jiangyan's health. What a waste! "She finally obtained what she always wanted," I replied lightly. "Naturally, she is pleased." Baiji frowned. "But she keeps acting as though she already outranks you." I smiled faintly. Does she? Baiji lowered her voice. Yesterday, she even ordered servants from your courtyard. Ah, so quickly. The hunger for power had already surfaced. Interesting. I carefully ground medicinal powder with a jade mortar. Let her. Baiji looked horrified. Miss! I raised my eyes toward her slowly. Baiji, do you know the fastest way to destroy someone? She blinked. No. I placed the crushed herbs neatly into silk paper packets. Give them exactly what they want. Silence filled the room. The wind outside rattled bamboo branches softly against the window. Baiji swallowed uneasily. Sometimes I forgot how frightening my own thoughts had become, but how could they not? Death changed people. Betrayal sharpened them. That afternoon, I left the manor quietly. No elaborate carriage, no noble attendants, only a plain cloak and Baiji accompanying me through the western district of the capital. The crowded streets bustled with life. Merchants shouted prices loudly. Children chased one another through narrow alleys. The scent of roasted chestnuts mixed with incense and horse sweat beneath the chilly autumn wind. I walked calmly through the market while observing everything carefully. Trade routes, merchant symbols, guard patrol patterns. Information moved faster in markets than inside palaces, and information was often more valuable than gold. Miss, Baiji whispered nervously, where exactly are we going? I stopped before a quiet herbal pharmacy hidden between two larger storefronts. The sign above the entrance read, Hall of Returning Spring. A very ordinary name, too ordinary, which meant it was perfect. In my previous life, I accidentally discovered this pharmacy supplied medicinal materials directly to hidden military camps outside the capital. At the time, I never investigated further. Now I understood. This place belonged to Zhao Shu Wande. I stepped inside. The air smelled richly of dried herbs and sandalwood. Rows of medicine cabinets lined the walls, while a middle-aged shopkeeper calculated accounts behind the counter. He looked up lazily. Buying medicine? Yes, I replied calmly. What symptoms? I met his gaze evenly. I'm looking for Frost Heart Lotus. The man's expression changed instantly. Just slightly, but enough, because Frost Heart Lotus did not truly exist. It was a coded phrase used within Zhao Shu Wande's hidden intelligence network, a phrase I learned only after death. The shopkeeper studied me carefully now. Miss, he said slowly, that medicine is difficult to obtain. I smiled faintly, but not impossible. Silence stretched. Then the man lowered his ledger quietly. Please follow me. Baiji nearly stumbled in panic as we followed him through the back corridor, past herb storage rooms, past drying racks, past an inner courtyard. Finally, he stopped before a closed wooden door. Wait here. Then he disappeared inside. Baiji grabbed my sleeve immediately. Miss, what is happening? I simply stared ahead calmly, because I already knew. The atmosphere beyond the door felt cold, controlled, dangerous, like standing before a sleeping beast. A few moments later, the door opened, and a low voice spoke from within. Enter. Baiji froze completely, but I walked forward without hesitation. The room inside was dimly lit. Ink paintings hung along black wooden walls, while a faint scent of pine smoke lingered in the air, and near the window sat Zhao Shu Wande. He wore dark robes today without royal embroidery. His silver mask remained in place. One hand rested calmly atop the arm of his wheelchair, while the other held a black chess piece. He looked less like a prince and more like something hidden beneath the empire itself. The shopkeeper bowed deeply before leaving. The door closed behind me. Silence followed. Zhao Shu Wande studied me openly. No politeness, no pretense, just observation. "You know the code phrase," he said calmly. His voice was low and smooth, dangerously smooth. "Yes. And yet," he continued, "you are merely the eldest legitimate daughter of the Shen family." I smiled slightly. "Merely?" A faint pause. Then, unexpectedly, the corner of his lips curved upward, very slightly. Interesting answer. Baiji nearly fainted beside me. I ignored her entirely. Zhao Xuande placed the chess piece down softly. "You changed after the hunting banquet." Not a question, a statement. My eyes narrowed subtly. As expected, a man capable of controlling hidden intelligence networks would naturally notice abnormalities quickly. I stepped closer calmly. "And Your Highness noticed?" His gaze sharpened. "Most people avoid me." "Well," I replied lightly, "most people are foolish." Silence. Then suddenly, a quiet laugh escaped him. Not warm, but genuine. The sound startled even me, because in my previous life, Zhao Xuande was known for one thing above all else. He never laughed. "You are the first person in years who dared say such words before me," he said. I met his eyes steadily. "And yet you did not kill me for it." His fingers tapped lightly against the wheelchair armrest. "You are very calm for someone standing alone before a prince with a reputation for cruelty." Cruelty? No. The capital called him cruel because they feared what they did not understand. Meanwhile, Zhao Jiang slaughtered entire families while smiling gently in daylight. How ironic. "I did not come here to fear you," I replied. "Then why did you come?" Finally, the true question. I looked directly at him. "Because I wish to make a deal." The room fell silent. Outside, distant wind brushed softly against bamboo leaves. Zhao Xuande's gaze became colder now. "What kind of deal?" "I can help Your Highness." A dangerous stillness settled instantly. Even Baiji stopped breathing. Then Zhao Xuande asked quietly, "And what could a sheltered noble daughter possibly offer me?" I smiled slowly. "The future." His eyes narrowed. For the first time since entering the room, I felt pressure. Real pressure, like invisible blades pressing against my throat. Because clever men hated mysteries beyond their control, and Zhao Xuande was far too clever. "You speak boldly," he said softly. I walked toward the nearby chess table. Black and white pieces remained locked mid-game, an unfinished battlefield. Without asking permission, I picked up a white piece, then placed it decisively near the center, a killing move. Zhao Xuande's eyes flickered, because the entire board changed instantly. The losing side reversed, the trapped dragon escaped, and the Black King became cornered. "You—" He stopped. For the first time, true surprise appeared in his voice. I placed the remaining white piece down gently. "In 3 months," I said calmly, "Minister Liu of Revenue will secretly move military silver through Western transport routes." His gaze sharpened dangerously. "In 6 months, Northern grain reserves will fail due to corruption." Another pause. "And next spring, the Crown Prince will begin recruiting private military forces through disguised merchant caravans." The room became deathly silent. Baiji stared at me in horror, but Zhao Xuande no longer looked amused. He looked terrifying, because every word I spoke was true, and none of those things should yet be known. Slowly, Very slowly, he leaned back within his wheelchair. "Who," he asked quietly, "are you really?" I held his gaze without fear. "I am someone who already died once." The candlelight flickered. Neither of us moved. Then finally, Zhao Xuande smiled, and this time the smile reached his eyes. Cold, dark, beautiful, like a dragon finally awakening beneath frozen water. "Shen Qingli," he murmured softly. "Yes, you truly are very interesting." The moment those words left Zhao Xuande's lips, the atmosphere inside the room changed completely. Before, he had merely been testing me. Now, he was evaluating whether I was dangerous. I understood men like him. The more intelligent the predator, the less they tolerated uncertainty. And at this moment, I was uncertainty itself. The candlelight flickered softly across the silver mask covering half his face. His fingers rested motionless upon the chessboard, yet the pressure within the room intensified quietly, like invisible silk threads tightening around my throat. Bai Ji had already turned pale behind me. Poor girl, she probably believed her young miss had suddenly become possessed by mountain spirits. To be honest, sometimes even I felt that way. Zhao Xuande's gaze lingered on me for a long moment. Then he asked softly, "How did you learn those things?" I smiled faintly. "If I answer honestly, Your Highness may not believe me. Try me." His voice was calm, too calm. I lowered my eyes toward the chessboard. "In a dream," I said lightly. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed again, a low, quiet sound. "You expect me to believe state secrets appeared in your dreams?" "No," I replied calmly, "but I know Your Highness already investigated the Western grain routes personally 2 months ago." His eyes narrowed instantly. "Interesting. So that matter truly happened earlier than I remembered." "Continue," he said. "The transport losses reported by the Ministry of Revenue were false." I moved another white piece casually. "Someone has been siphoning military silver gradually through caravan exchanges." A pause. "And the Crown Prince knows." This time, the room turned cold. Not metaphorically, actually cold. The killing intent emanating from Zhao Xuande became sharp enough to suffocate. Bai Ji nearly collapsed. I remained still, because fear meant weakness, and weakness before men like Zhao Xuande invited control. Finally, he spoke quietly. "You seem very certain His Highness is involved." "I am." "Why?" I looked him directly into his eyes. "Because I know exactly what kind of person Zhao Jiangyan is." His gaze sharpened slightly at my tone. Hatred recognized hatred. "Interesting. Very interesting." He leaned back slightly within the wheelchair. "You speak of the future as though you have already seen it." I smiled slowly. "What if I have?" Silence. Then he asked, "And in this future of yours, who wins?" Ah, so that was the real question. Not suspicion, not curiosity. Ambition. I lowered my gaze briefly. In my previous life, Zhao Xuande never openly fought for the throne, at least not publicly. Yet after my death, countless officials disappeared overnight. Border armies shifted allegiance mysteriously, and within less than 1 year, the Crown Prince's faction collapsed completely. No one knew how. No one dared ask. By the time the truth surfaced, Zhao Xuande already controlled half the empire. A crippled prince hidden in shadows had quietly devoured every enemy. Monster. Absolute monster. And yet, compared to Zhao Jingyan, he was strangely honest about his cruelty. "I believe," I said softly, "the person who survives is the person willing to wait the longest." His eyes remained fixed on me. Then, slowly, the corner of his lips curved upward. Clever answer. Of course it was, because I had no intention of revealing everything, not yet. Trust between predators did not appear overnight. It formed gradually, through usefulness, through leverage, through mutual danger. Zhao Xuande tapped the chessboard lightly. "What exactly do you want from me, Shen Qingli?" Finally, the true negotiation. I walked calmly toward the window. Outside, thin rain had begun falling over the capital rooftops. The streets below glistened beneath gray skies. "I want protection." His brows lifted slightly. "Protection?" "Yes." I turned toward him slowly. "My family will eventually be dragged into Zhao Zhengyan Crown Prince faction disputes. That is unavoidable for noble families. Not if I separate myself early enough." His gaze lingered on me thoughtfully. "Are you abandoning your own bloodline?" "No." My voice remained calm. "I am trying to save what can still be saved. The Shen family's destruction in my previous life did not happen overnight. It happened because we attached ourselves too deeply to Zhao Jingyan. Loyalty became chains. Blind trust became execution orders. This time, I would cut those chains myself." Zhao Xuande studied me silently. Then he asked, "And what do I gain?" I smiled faintly. "An ally who knows where your enemies will move before they move." Another pause. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Then, suddenly, "Your Highness!" A black-clothed guard entered rapidly through the side door before immediately kneeling. His movements halted the instant he saw me. Surprise flashed across his face. "Interesting. So Zhao Xuande truly never allowed outsiders here." The guard lowered his head quickly. "Forgive this subordinate." Zhao Xuande turned his voice cold instantly. "Report." "The Crown Prince's people have begun contacting northern military officials secretly." "Ah. Earlier than expected." So Zhao Jingyan was already preparing his private military foundation. Zhao Xuandez's fingers tapped slowly against the wheelchair armrest. "Continue surveillance." "Yes." The guard hesitated briefly. Then his gaze flicked toward me again. Suspicion, wariness, fear. All understandable. After all, I had just appeared from nowhere speaking forbidden information. Before leaving, the guard finally asked carefully, "Does Your Highness require this subordinate to—" His hand shifted subtly toward his sword. "Kill me." How efficient. But Zhao Xuande interrupted calmly. "No." The guard froze, then immediately lowered his head. "Yes, Your Highness." He vanished silently. The room returned to quiet once more. I looked toward Zhao Xuande calmly. "You trust me very quickly." "No," he replied. The honesty almost amused me. "I simply think killing you now would be wasteful." "Much better." I preferred monsters who spoke plainly. He observed me another moment before asking, "You truly are not afraid?" I considered the question seriously. "Afraid?" Once, perhaps. In my previous life, I feared many things. Losing Zhao Jingyan's affection, disappointing my family, damaging the Shen family reputation, failing to become a proper crown princess. But after dying, after watching my entire clan executed, something inside me broke permanently. I met Zhao Xuandei's gaze evenly. I already died once. My voice remained calm, so there is very little left to fear. For the first time since entering this room, Zhao Xuandei fell completely silent, not calculating, not probing. Silent, as though those words struck somewhere deeper than expected. Then quietly he asked, "How painful was it?" The question startled me, because it was not political, not manipulative. It sounded personal. Memories surged instantly. The sword through my chest, blood soaking snow, Shen Yurong smiling, Zhao Jingyan's cold eyes. My fingers curled slightly within my sleeves. "Enough," I answered softly, "to never make the same mistake again." Something unreadable flickered across his eyes. Then he looked away first. Interesting.
Very interesting. The rain outside intensified. Baiji finally gathered enough courage to whisper, "Miss, perhaps we should return." Yes, poor thing had probably reached the limit of terror her heart could endure. I almost pitied her. Almost. I turned toward Zhao Xuandei and bowed lightly. "Then I will not disturb your highness further today." He did not stop me, but just as I reached the doorway, his voice sounded behind me quietly. "Shen Qingli?" I paused. "You said you wanted protection." "Yes." A brief silence followed. Then, "Very well." Baiji nearly gasped aloud. Even I paused slightly. "So easily?" "No, not easily. Men like Zhao Xuandei never gave anything freely. This was investment, nothing more. Still, it was enough." I turned slightly. "And in return?" His gaze settled upon me steadily. "When the future changes," he said softly, "I want to know first." Ah, there it was. Control of information. How fitting. I smiled faintly. Agreed. Then I left. The rain outside felt cold against my skin as Baiji hurried beside me through the crowded streets. Only after we entered the carriage did she finally explode in panic. "Miss, what was that?" I closed my eyes briefly. "What do you mean?" "You spoke to Prince Xuandei as though what?" She lowered her voice in horror. "As though you were equals." I almost laughed. Equals? No, not yet. Right now, Zhao Xuandei was a hidden dragon waiting beneath dark waters, and I was merely a woman trying to survive fate itself. But perhaps one day, things would become different. The carriage wheels rolled steadily through rain-soaked streets. Outside, the capital remained lively and unaware. Shen Yurong still dreamed of becoming crown princess. Zhao Jianyang still believed he controlled the future. The Shen family still walked unknowingly toward disaster. Only I knew the truth. Only I remembered the ending, and this time, I intended to rewrite it with my own hands. Winter arrived early that year. Thin frost coated the plum branches within the Shen Manor gardens, while servants hurried through corridors carrying charcoal braziers against the biting cold. The capital, however, remained unusually lively, because the crown prince had become openly infatuated with Shen Yurong. Every 3 days, gifts arrived from the Eastern Palace. Every 5 days, invitations followed. Tea banquets, poetry gatherings, temple offerings. Even the Empress Dowager summoned Shen Yurong twice within a single month. The entire capital now referred to her as the future crown princess. And Shen Yurong floated through the manor like someone walking on clouds. "Elder sister?" Her sweet voice drifted through my courtyard one snowy afternoon. I looked up calmly from the medical text in my hands. She stood beneath the corridor lanterns wearing a cloak lined with white fox fur. Exquisite, luxurious. The jade pendant hanging at her waist belonged to Zhao Jingyan. In my previous life, he had given that pendant to me, said it symbolized eternal loyalty. What nonsense. "Second sister," I greeted lightly. She entered my chamber with 2 servant girls carrying silk boxes. The moment the lids opened, jewelry glittered beneath candlelight. Gold hairpins, pearl earrings, jade bracelets. Every piece extraordinarily valuable. Shen Yurong smiled modestly. "His Highness sent too many gifts again. I thought elder sister might like some." Bai Ji nearly rolled her eyes openly. Even I almost admired Yurong's shamelessness, offering leftovers from my former husband to me personally. How poetic. I picked up a gold phoenix hairpin casually. Beautiful craftsmanship. Exactly Zhao Jingyan's taste. Extravagant but hollow. Like him. "I think you should keep them," I said calmly. "His Highness clearly treasures you." The joy in Yurong's eyes deepened instantly. Yes, she wanted to hear those words. Validation, confirmation, victory. She lowered her gaze shyly. "His Highness treats me very well lately." "Ah, so quickly already. Interesting. And what future did His Highness mention?" Her cheeks flushed. "He said, once he ascends the throne, he wishes the woman beside him to understand him completely." I nearly laughed aloud. Understand him? No woman could understand Zhao Jingyan, because beneath his elegant face existed nothing except ambition and suspicion. The more he trusted someone, the faster he destroyed them. But Shen Yurong looked radiant with happiness. Poor fool. She believed herself special, chosen, different from all others. I had once believed the same. "Then second sister should cherish His Highness carefully," I replied softly. "I will," she said quickly. Of course she would. Until he devoured her whole. A servant suddenly hurried into the courtyard before kneeling outside. "First Miss, the Crown Prince has arrived." Ah, there he was. The snake himself. Shen Yurong instantly brightened. I slowly closed my medical text. Interesting. Zhao Jiang rarely visited noble households personally without purpose, so why come today? Moments later, the familiar figure entered the courtyard. Dark robes, warm smile, elegant bearing. The perfect prince. Servants immediately bowed deeply. "Greetings, Your Highness." "Rise." His gaze swept across the room before landing directly upon me. There it was again, that subtle pause, that unreadable observation. Ever since the hunting banquet, Zhao Jiang had begun paying closer attention to me. At first, he likely believed I played some difficult-to-get game, but as weeks passed, and I genuinely avoided him, his interest only deepened. How ironic. In my previous life, I desperately sought his affection. Now that I discarded him completely, he became curious instead. Men truly were disgusting creatures. "Qingli," he greeted softly. I bowed politely. "Your Highness." A faint crease appeared between his brows.
Again that distance. Again that unfamiliar calmness from me. He turned slightly toward Shen Yurong afterward. "Second Miss Shen." Her smile bloomed instantly. "My prince?" My prince. How intimate. How nauseating. Zhao Jiang sat across from us while servants poured hot tea. Snow drifted softly beyond the courtyard windows. The atmosphere looked harmonious enough to paint. If only anyone knew how much blood would eventually stain this relationship. "I heard First Miss Shen has recently been studying medicine," Zhao Jiang remarked casually. "Ah, so he investigated me already. Expected." I lowered my gaze modestly. "Only small interests." He studied me carefully. "In the past, you preferred poetry and Guqin. Because in the past, I wasted my life trying to become your ideal woman. Now, however, I preferred learning skills that could keep me alive." "People change," I replied calmly. Something flickered in his eyes. Not displeasure. Interest. Dangerous interest. Shen Yurong noticed immediately. Her fingers tightened slightly around her teacup. Ah, there it was. Jealousy. Even now, after obtaining his favor, she still feared me, because deep down, she knew Zhao Jingyan originally wanted me. Poor thing. She could never truly relax while I remained alive. Zhao Jingyan leaned back slightly. "The palace physicians recently acquired several rare medical manuscripts from the southern territories," he said lightly. "If First Miss Shen is interested, I could arrange access." Yurong's smile stiffened, almost invisibly. And there it was, the hook. He was testing me, offering favor, seeing whether I would reach for it again. In my previous life, I absolutely would have. Any sign of affection from him once made my heart race, like a foolish girl. Now, I merely found him tiresome. I smiled politely. "Thank you for your Highness's kindness, but there is no need." Silence. Even the servants sensed something strange, because noble daughters did not reject royal favor, especially not from the crown prince. Zhao Jingyan's eyes narrowed faintly. Is Qingli dissatisfied with this prince somehow? Ah, straight to the point. Good. I preferred clarity. I raised my gaze toward him calmly. How could I? "You seem distant lately." "Your Highness overthinks." "Do I?" Our eyes met briefly, and for the first time since Rebirth, I saw something dangerous emerge beneath his gentle facade. Possessiveness, suspicion, control. Because Zhao Jingyan hated losing interest from those who once admired him, especially women. Beside him, Shen Yurong quietly lowered her head, but I noticed the relief hidden within her expression. She believed Zhao Jingyan still cared for me, which meant her desire to eliminate me would only grow stronger. Excellent. The more anxious she became, the more mistakes she would make. "I merely think," I said softly, "that second sister suits your Highness very well." Shen Yurong immediately looked up. Zhao Jingyan remained silent. I continued calmly. "Second sister is gentle, obedient, and thoughtful. She will certainly become a virtuous wife. A virtuous puppet, a perfect target, a future sacrifice." Zhao Jingyan suddenly smiled. But this smile was colder than before. "Qingli speaks as though she understands this prince deeply." My fingers paused briefly atop my sleeve. "Oh, I understand you far more deeply than you realize. I understand how you smile before betrayal, how you soften your voice before murder, how you destroy people while convincing yourself you are righteous.
The more I remembered, the more disgusted I became. Still, I simply smiled faintly. Your Highness is wise and benevolent. Understanding you is not difficult. Lie. Every word a lie.
Yet Zhao Jingyan seemed strangely unsatisfied. Interesting. He truly preferred resistance now. How pathetic. After another short exchange, he finally stood to leave, but before departing, he paused beside me briefly, close enough for only me to hear. Qingli? I looked up calmly. His gaze lingered on my face. You changed. Not a question, a statement. For one dangerous moment, silence stretched between us. Snow fell quietly outside. My heartbeat remained perfectly steady. Then I smiled softly. Perhaps Your Highness simply never knew me well enough before. Something dark flickered across his eyes. Not anger, not confusion, desire, possession, curiosity, and beneath all of it, suspicion. Very good. Let him suspect. The more attention Zhao Jingyan focused on me, the less he noticed the shadows moving around him elsewhere. After he finally left, Shen Yurong remained unusually quiet. I continued pouring tea calmly. Then suddenly she asked softly, "Elder sister, do you regret it?" I raised a brow slightly. Regret what? Stepping aside. Ah, so that insecurity finally surfaced openly. I looked toward her carefully. Despite her luxurious clothing and obvious joy, anxiety still lingered beneath her eyes, because women always sensed danger instinctively, and some part of her already understood Zhao Jingyan's attention toward me had not disappeared completely. Poor thing, even after stealing everything, she still feared losing. I smiled faintly. No. Then I added quietly, some things only appear precious until you hold them in your hands. Her expression shifted slightly. Confusion, discomfort, perhaps even unease. Good, let the seed grow slowly. I watched snow drift silently beyond the window. In my previous life, I once believed obtaining Zhao Jingyan meant happiness. Now I understood the truth. Some people were not lovers. They were disasters wearing beautiful faces. And this time, I intended to watch the disaster completely consume Shen Yurong. The first attempt on my life came 10 days later. Not through assassins, not through poison, but through reputation, which was far more effective against noble women. I sat within the eastern pavilion of the Shen Manor, reviewing medicinal records, when hurried footsteps suddenly echoed outside. Then, "Miss!" Baiji burst into the room pale-faced and breathless. I calmly turned a page. What happened? She nearly tripped over her own robes rushing toward me. The capital is spreading rumors about you." Ah, finally. I closed the medical text slowly. So soon? Baiji froze. You already knew? Of course I knew, because Shen Yurong always used the same methods. When direct attacks were risky, she destroyed people indirectly. Tears, rumors, reputation. That was her favorite battlefield. What are they saying? I asked calmly. Baiji looked furious enough to cry. They're saying you secretly resent Second Miss for winning the Crown Prince's favor. Ah, predictable. So? Stared at me in disbelief. They say you've been intentionally pretending indifference while privately sending gifts and letters to His Highness. Ah, interesting. Shen Yurong improved slightly this lifetime. That accusation was clever. If I denied it desperately, I would appear guilty. If Zhao Jingyan denied it personally, the rumors would only spread further. Either way, my reputation suffered. And if the Empress Dowager heard such things, a woman accused of secretly seducing her own sister's future husband would immediately become disgraceful. Very good. Very efficient. I stood calmly. Prepare the carriage. Baiji blinked. Miss? We're going out. To where? I smiled faintly. To help my dear sister. The Shen Manor's western courtyard was lively when I arrived. Servants carried expensive fabrics in and out endlessly, while Madame Chen proudly supervised new furnishings being delivered for Shen Yurong's chambers. Everyone already treated her like royalty. How amusing. The moment I entered, the atmosphere shifted slightly. Servants lowered their heads nervously, because even now, even with the Crown Prince's favor, I remained the legitimate eldest daughter. Some hierarchies did not disappear so easily. Shen Yurong sat near the corridor feeding fish within a jade pond. The moment she saw me, her expression brightened artificially. Elder sister? I smiled gently. Second sister seems quite free today. She laughed softly. His Highness recently sent several rare koi fish, so I came to look at them. Her tone sounded casual, but the hidden meaning was obvious. The Crown Prince treasures me. Look how favored I am. How tiresome. I sat across from her slowly, then calmly asked, "Did you spread the rumors?" Her hand froze briefly above the fish food, only briefly. Then she looked wounded immediately. "Sister, how could you think such things?" Excellent acting. Even now she remained talented. I leaned slightly closer. "Then should I investigate properly?" Her eyes flickered. There it was, fear. Because she knew I would find evidence if I truly searched deeply enough. Shen Yurong lowered her gaze sadly. Perhaps some people misunderstood after seeing His Highness speak kindly to elder sister recently. Ah, so she admitted it indirectly. Smart. Never say the accusation personally, only misunderstand. That way she remained innocent regardless of outcome. In my previous life, I constantly lost against this tactic because I still cared about familial affection. Now, I only cared about results. I smiled softly. Second sister worries too much. She blinked, not expecting that answer. I continued calmly. If rumors spread, then we simply clarify them. A pause. How? I picked up fish food casually and scattered it into the pond. Ripples spread slowly across dark water. I said lightly, "Tomorrow, I will personally visit the palace." Her expression changed instantly. Interesting. So she truly panicked. Because if I entered the palace and spoke directly with the Empress Dowager, the situation could reverse immediately, especially if I behaved magnanimously. Shen Yurong forced a smile. "There's no need to trouble elder sister." "Oh," I looked at her gently, "but aren't you worried these rumors may damage your relationship with His Highness?" Her fingers tightened visibly. Exactly. That was her weakness, Zhao Jingyan. Everything connected to him destabilized her emotions immediately. Pathetic. I stood gracefully. "Do not worry," I said warmly. "As your elder sister, I naturally wish to protect your happiness." Then I left. Behind me, I could practically feel her thoughts spiraling. Should she stop me? Should she confess? Should she spread further rumors? Good. Panic carefully, little sister. The tighter you clutch something stolen, the more terrified you become of losing it. The next morning, I entered the palace. Snow covered the imperial roads heavily, while palace servants moved quietly beneath the gray winter sky. The Empress Dowager's palace smelled richly of sandalwood incense and medicinal tea, warm, elegant, suffocating. I knelt calmly before the old woman seated atop the Phoenix platform. In my previous life, I once respected her deeply. After all, she had favored me greatly before my marriage. Until Shen Qingli became pregnant. Then, suddenly, I transformed from ideal granddaughter-in-law to useless, barren waste. Human hearts truly shifted quickly. "Arise, Qingli," the Empress Dowager said warmly. I obeyed gracefully. She studied me carefully. "You've grown thinner recently." "I've been studying medicine," I replied softly. Her eyes brightened slightly. "Oh, a noble daughter learning medicine." "Only basic skills." The Empress Dowager nodded approvingly. Then, finally, her expression cooled slightly. "I heard unpleasant rumors recently." Of course she had. Nothing spread faster than scandal involving noblewomen. I lowered my gaze calmly. "This subject daughter came precisely to address that matter. Speak." I paused deliberately, then said softly, "Second sister and the Crown Prince share mutual affection. I genuinely rejoice for them." The Empress Dowager observed me carefully. I continued, "As elder sister, I only hope their marriage proceeds smoothly. Therefore, I wish to avoid any misunderstandings damaging second sister's reputation." A silence followed. Then, slowly, the Empress Dowager's expression softened, because my response was flawless. No jealousy, no denial, only concern for family harmony. Elegant, virtuous, untouchable. Finally, the Empress Dowager sighed. "You are a good child." I smiled faintly. No, I was simply no longer naive. She gestured slightly toward a palace maid. "Pass my words through the inner court. Any further malicious rumors regarding the Shen sisters will be punished." "As you command." Interesting. Just like that, the situation reversed completely, because once the Empress Dowager intervened, anyone continuing the rumors would effectively challenge imperial authority. Shen Qingli's scheme collapsed instantly. How fragile. After leaving the palace, Bai Ji looked at me with open admiration. "Miss, you destroyed the rumors so easily." I stepped into the carriage calmly. "No." I looked toward the distant palace walls through the curtain. "I only reminded everyone who truly controls the narrative." Bai Ji frowned slightly. "I still don't understand why Second Miss keeps targeting you. You already stepped aside." Ah, poor Bai Ji still did not understand women like Shen Qingli. I closed my eyes briefly. "Because," I said softly, "people who steal things never stop fearing the original owner." And because deep down, Shen Qingli knew something terrifying. No matter how much Zhao Jing'an favored her publicly, the person he originally desired was me. That evening, the Eastern Palace received news of the palace rumors collapsing. Zhao Jing'an sat silently beside the window while reading the report. A servant knelt nearby, trembling slightly. After several moments, the Crown Prince finally smiled, softly, dangerously. "So," he murmured quietly, "Shen Qingli entered the palace personally only to protect her sister." The servant lowered his head further. Zhao Jingyan's fingers tapped lightly against the report. Then, suddenly, he laughed. A low sound filled with amusement and something darker. Interesting. Very interesting, because for the first time a woman had stepped away from him willingly,
and instead of losing interest, he found himself wanting to understand her more. Even now, after obtaining his favor, she still feared me, because deep down, she knew Zhao Jiangyan originally wanted me. Poor thing, she could never truly relax while I remained alive. Zhao Jiangyan leaned back slightly. The palace physicians recently acquired several rare medical manuscripts from the southern territories, he said lightly. If first Miss Shen is interested, I could arrange access. Yurong's smile stiffened almost invisibly. And there it was, the hook. He was testing me, offering favor, seeing whether I would reach for it again. In my previous life, I absolutely would have. Any sign of affection from him once made my heart race like a foolish girl. Now, I merely found him tiresome. I smiled politely. "Thank you for your Highness's kindness, but there is no need." Silence. Even the servants sensed something strange, because noble daughters did not reject royal favor, especially not from the crown prince. Zhao Jiangyan's eyes narrowed faintly. Is Qingli dissatisfied with this prince somehow? Ah, straight to the point. Good. I preferred clarity. I raised my gaze toward him calmly. How could I? You seem distant lately. Your Highness overthinks. Do I? Our eyes met briefly, and for the first time since Rebirth, I saw something dangerous emerge beneath his gentle facade. Possessiveness, suspicion, control. Because Zhao Jiangyan hated losing interest from those who once admired him, especially women. Beside him, Shen Yurong quietly lowered her head, but I noticed the relief hidden within her expression. She believed Zhao Jiangyan still cared for me, which meant her desire to eliminate me would only grow stronger. Excellent. The more anxious she became, the more mistakes she would make. I said softly, "Second sister suits your Highness very well." Shen Yurong immediately looked up. Zhao Jiangyan remained silent. I continued calmly. "Second sister is gentle, obedient, and thoughtful. She will certainly become a virtuous wife, a virtuous puppet, a perfect target, a future sacrifice." Zhao Jiangyan suddenly smiled, but this smile was colder than before. "Qingli speaks as though she understands this prince deeply." My fingers paused briefly atop my sleeve. "Oh, I understand you far more deeply than you realize. I understand how you smile before betrayal, how you soften your voice before murder, how you destroy people while convincing yourself you are righteous." The more I remembered, the more disgusted I became. Still, I simply smiled faintly. "Your Highness is wise and benevolent. Understanding you is not difficult." Lie. Every word a lie.
Yet Zhao Jingyan seemed strangely unsatisfied. Interesting. He truly preferred resistance now. How pathetic. After another short exchange, he finally stood to leave, but before departing, he paused beside me briefly, close enough for only me to hear. "Qingli." I looked up calmly. His gaze lingered on my face. "You changed." Not a question, a statement. For one dangerous moment, silence stretched between us. Snow fell quietly outside. My heartbeat remained perfectly steady. Then I smiled softly. "Perhaps your Highness simply never knew me well enough before." Something dark flickered across his eyes. Not anger, not confusion. Desire, possession, curiosity, and beneath all of it, suspicion. Very good. Let him suspect. The more attention Zhao Jingyan focused on me, the less he noticed the shadows moving around him elsewhere. After he finally left, Shen Yurong remained unusually quiet. I continued pouring tea calmly. Then suddenly she asked softly, "Elder sister, do you regret it?" I raised a brow slightly. "Regret what?" Stepping aside. Ah, so that insecurity finally surfaced openly. I looked toward her carefully. Despite her luxurious clothing and obvious joy, anxiety still lingered beneath her eyes. Because women always sensed danger instinctively, and some part of her already understood, Zhao Jingyan's attention toward me had not disappeared completely. Poor thing. Even after stealing everything, she still feared losing. I smiled faintly. No. Then I added quietly, "Some things only appear precious until you hold them in your hands." Her expression shifted slightly. Confusion, discomfort, perhaps even unease. Good. Let the seed grow slowly. I watched snow drift silently beyond the window. In my previous life, I once believed obtaining Zhao Jingyan meant obtaining happiness. Now I understood the truth. Some people were not lovers. They were disasters wearing beautiful faces. And this time, I intended to watch the disaster consume Shen Yurong completely. The first attempt on my life came 10 days later. Not through assassins, not through poison, but through reputation, which was far more effective against noblewomen. I sat within the eastern pavilion of the Shen Manor reviewing medicinal records when hurried footsteps suddenly echoed outside. Then,
"Miss!" Baiji burst into the room, pale-faced and breathless. I calmly turned a page. What happened? She nearly tripped over her own robes, rushing toward me. The capital is spreading rumors about you." Ah, finally. I closed the medical text slowly. "So soon?" Baiji froze. "You already knew?" Of course I knew, because Shen Yuang always used the same methods. When direct attacks were risky, she destroyed people indirectly. Tears, rumors, reputation. That was her favorite battlefield. "What are they saying?" I asked calmly. Baiji looked furious enough to cry. "They're saying you secretly resent Second Miss for winning the Crown Prince's favor." I almost smiled. Predictable. So? Baiji stared at me in disbelief. "They say you've been intentionally pretending indifference while privately sending gifts and letters to His Highness." Ah, interesting. Shen Yurong improved slightly this lifetime. That accusation was clever. If I denied it desperately, I would appear guilty. If Zhao Jingyan denied it personally, the rumors would only spread further. Either way, my reputation suffered. And if the Empress Dowager heard such things, a woman accused of secretly seducing her own sister's future husband would immediately become disgraceful. Very good. Very efficient. I stood calmly. "Prepare the carriage." Baiji blinked. "Miss? We're going out." "To where?" I smiled faintly. "To help my dear sister." The Shen Manor's western courtyard was lively when I arrived. Servants carried expensive fabrics in and out endlessly, while Madame Chen proudly supervised new furnishings being delivered for Shen Yurong's chambers. Everyone already treated her like royalty. How amusing. The moment I entered, the atmosphere shifted slightly. Servants lowered their heads nervously. Because even now, even with the Crown Prince's favor, I remained the legitimate eldest daughter. Some hierarchies did not disappear so easily. Shen Yurong sat near the corridor, feeding fish within a jade pond. The moment she saw me, her expression brightened artificially. "Elder sister." I smiled gently. "Second sister seems quite free today." She laughed softly. "His Highness recently sent several rare koi fish, so I came to look at them." Her tone sounded casual, but the hidden meaning was obvious. The Crown Prince treasures me. Look how favored I am. How tiresome. I sat across from her slowly, then calmly asked,
"Did you spread the rumors?" Her hand froze briefly above the fish food. Only briefly. Then she looked wounded immediately. "Sister, how could you think such things?" Excellent acting. Even now, she remained talented. I leaned slightly closer. Then should I investigate properly? Her eyes flickered. There it was. Fear, because she knew I would find evidence if I truly searched deeply enough. Shen Yurong lowered her gaze sadly. Perhaps some people misunderstood after seeing His Highness speak kindly to elder sister recently. Ah, so she admitted it indirectly. Smart. Never say the accusation personally, only misunderstand. That way, she remained innocent regardless of outcome. In my previous life, I constantly lost against this tactic because I still cared about familial affection. Now, I only cared about results. I smiled softly. Second sister worries too much. She blinked, not expecting that answer. I continued calmly. If rumors spread, then we simply clarify them. A pause. How? I picked up fish food casually and scattered it into the pond. Ripples spread slowly across dark water. Tomorrow, I said lightly, I will personally visit the palace. Her expression changed instantly. Interesting. So she truly panicked. Because if I entered the palace and spoke directly with the Empress Dowager, the situation could reverse immediately, especially if I behaved magnanimously. Shen Yurong forced a smile. There's no need to trouble elder sister. Oh, I looked at her gently. But aren't you worried these rumors may damage your relationship with His Highness? Her fingers tightened visibly. Exactly. That was her weakness. Zhao Jiangyan. Everything connected to him destabilized her emotions immediately. Pathetic. I stood gracefully. Do not worry, I said warmly. As your elder sister, I naturally wish to protect your happiness. Then I left. Behind me, I could practically feel her thoughts spiraling. Should she stop me? Should she confess? Should she spread further rumors? Good. Panic carefully, little sister. The tighter you clutch something stolen, the more terrified you become of losing it. The next morning, I entered the palace. Snow covered the imperial roads heavily, while palace servants moved quietly beneath the gray winter sky. The Empress Dowager's palace smelled richly of sandalwood incense and medicinal tea. Warm, elegant, suffocating. I knelt calmly before the old woman seated atop the Phoenix platform. In my previous life, I once respected her deeply. After all, she had favored me greatly before my marriage. Until Shen Yurong became pregnant. Then suddenly, I transformed from ideal granddaughter-in-law to useless, barren waste. Human hearts truly shifted quickly. "Arise, Qingli," the Empress Dowager said warmly. I obeyed, gracefully. She studied me carefully. "You've grown thinner recently." "I've been studying medicine," I replied softly. Her eyes brightened slightly. "Oh, a noble daughter learning medicine?" "Only basic skills." The Empress Dowager nodded approvingly. Then, finally, her expression cooled slightly. "I heard unpleasant rumors recently." Of course she had. Nothing spread faster than scandal involving noblewomen. I lowered my gaze calmly. This subject daughter came precisely to address that matter. "Speak." I paused deliberately, then said softly, "Second sister and the crown prince share mutual affection. This daughter genuinely rejoices for them. The Empress Dowager observed me carefully. I continued, "As elder sister, I only hope their marriage proceeds smoothly. Therefore, I wish to avoid any misunderstandings damaging second sister's reputation." A silence followed. Then, slowly, the Empress Dowager's expression softened, because my response was flawless. No jealousy, no denial, only concern for family harmony. Elegant, virtuous, untouchable. Finally, the Empress Dowager sighed. "You are a good child." I smiled faintly. No, I was simply no longer naive. She gestured slightly toward a palace maid. "Pass my words through the inner court. Any further malicious rumors regarding the Shen sisters will be punished. As you command." Interesting. Just like that, the situation reversed completely. Because once the Empress Dowager intervened, anyone continuing the rumors would effectively challenge imperial authority. Shen Yurong's scheme collapsed instantly. How fragile. After leaving the palace, Baiji looked at me with open admiration. "Miss, you destroyed the rumors so easily." I stepped into the carriage calmly. No, I looked toward the distant palace walls through the curtain. I only reminded everyone who truly controls the narrative. Baiji frowned slightly. "I still don't understand why Shen Yurong keeps targeting you. You already stepped aside." Ah, poor Baiji still did not understand women like Shen Yurong. I closed my eyes briefly. "Because," I said softly, "people who steal things never stop fearing the original owner. And because, deep down, Shen Yurong knew something terrifying. No matter how much Zhao Jingyan favored her publicly, the person he originally desired was me." That evening, the Eastern Palace received news of the palace rumors collapsing. Zhao Jingyan sat silently beside the window while reading the report.
A servant knelt nearby, trembling slightly. After several moments, the crown prince finally smiled, softly, dangerously. "So," he murmured quietly, "Shen Qingli entered the palace personally, only to protect her sister." The servant lowered his head further. Zhao Jingyan's fingers tapped lightly against the report. Then, suddenly, he laughed. A low sound filled with amusement and something darker. Interesting, very interesting, because for the first time, a woman had stepped away from him willingly, and instead of losing interest, he found himself wanting to understand her more. The first snowfall of the 12th lunar month covered the capital in white silence. Within the Shen Manor, preparations for the winter ancestor ceremony had already begun. Servants hung crimson lanterns along the corridors. Incense burners were polished carefully. Even the ancestral floors gleamed beneath candlelight. Outwardly, the Shen family appeared harmonious and prosperous. Inwardly, rot spread quietly beneath every smiling face. I sat beside the window grinding medicinal herbs when Baiji entered hurriedly. "Miss," she whispered, "second miss sent soup again." "Ah, again." I looked toward the lacquer tray in her hands. White porcelain bowl, lotus seed fragrance, delicate presentation, exactly the same as my previous life. Back then, Shen Yurong constantly sent nourishing soups to display sisterly affection. Everyone praised her kindness endlessly. No one realized those bowls slowly destroyed my body. My fingers paused briefly. The memory returned vividly. Years of infertility, constant weakness, coldness in my limbs,
and Shen Yurong watching patiently while pretending concern. How meticulous she had been. I almost admired her dedication. "Set it down," I said calmly. Bai Ji hesitated. "You're not going to drink it, right?" I smiled faintly. "Of course not." She sighed in relief immediately. Poor girl. At least one person in this manner still possessed basic survival instincts. I rose slowly and approached the table. The soup smelled perfectly normal, warm, sweet, harmless, but poison rarely announced itself loudly. I dipped a silver needle into the broth. Nothing happened. Naturally, the infertility herbs Shen Yurong used were subtle medicinal compounds, not obvious toxins. Long-term damage, impossible to detect unless one understood medicine deeply. Unfortunately for her, I now understood. Very well. Since she already began poisoning me again, it was time to collect the first true blood debt. "Bai Ji." "Yes, miss?" "Invite second miss to dine with me tonight."
Bai Ji blinked. "With this soup?" I smiled slowly. Yes. Fear crossed her face instantly, but she obeyed. Good girl. That evening, snow drifted softly through the courtyard while warm candlelight illuminated my chamber. A small dinner had been prepared elegantly. Simple dishes, wine, and the lotus seed soup, exactly as Shen Yurong intended. When she arrived, her expression carried obvious satisfaction, likely because she believed I finally accepted her kindness. "Elder sister," she greeted warmly. I smiled gently. "Sit." She obeyed gracefully. The atmosphere between us looked almost peaceful, like ordinary sisters sharing winter dinner together, if one ignored the poison sitting between us. We exchanged light conversation while servants poured wine quietly. Shen Yurong appeared relaxed tonight. Too relaxed. That meant she believed herself in control again. Excellent. After several moments, I personally lifted the porcelain soup bowl. Second sister's cooking skills improve more each day. Her eyes brightened immediately. I only feared elder sister might dislike it. How could I? I stirred the soup slowly, then casually asked, "Did you add snow lotus root this time?" Her expression froze, only for an instant, but I saw it clearly. Interesting, because snow lotus root was one of the hidden ingredients used in fertility-damaging medicinal blends. She recovered quickly. "Yes," she said softly, "it's beneficial for winter health." Lie. Absolute lie. I smiled faintly. Then second sister should also drink some. Her fingers tightened instantly. Ah, there it was. Panic. Shen Yurong forced a laugh. "This was specially prepared for elder sister, and I wish to share with you." I lifted another bowl personally, then slowly poured half the soup into it. Her face subtly paled. "Elder sister." I looked at her gently. "What's wrong?" Silence. The room became very quiet. Even the servants sensed tension now. Finally, Shen Yurong smiled stiffly. "I already drank some earlier." "Then another bowl shouldn't matter." I pushed the bowl toward her calmly. Our eyes met, and for the first time since my rebirth, the sweetness vanished from her expression. Only calculation remained. Cold.
Sharp. Venomous. Good. Much better. I preferred seeing her true face. "You suspect me," she said quietly. Not loudly, not tearfully. Quietly. Interesting.
So she abandoned the innocent act this quickly. I rested my chin lightly against one hand. Should I? Her gaze flickered toward the servants nearby. I understood immediately. She wanted privacy. I waved my hand lightly. Leave us. The servants bowed and exited quickly. Soon, only the two of us remained. Snow brushed softly against the windows outside. Neither of us moved. Then, Shen Yurong finally laughed softly. The sound no longer sounded gentle. You really changed. I smiled faintly. So did you. Her eyes narrowed slightly. When did you begin suspecting me? The better question was, when did I stop? In truth, I replied lightly, I should thank you. She frowned. Thank me? Yes. I leaned closer slowly. Without your betrayal, I may never have learned how disgusting human hearts truly are. Her expression shifted instantly. Shock, confusion, wariness, because my tone sounded wrong, too deep, too bitter, almost like someone speaking from another lifetime. Elder sister, she whispered carefully. I picked up the poisoned soup calmly, then drank it. Her eyes widened completely. Even she had not expected that. I lowered the bowl gently. Do you know, I said softly, what the worst kind of poison is? She stared at me silently. It isn't the kind that kills immediately. I smiled. It's the kind that destroys someone slowly while pretending to care for them. The color drained from her face. Interesting. Perhaps some part of her finally realized. I knew. Not suspicion, not guesswork. I knew. Her breathing became uneven. How much? She whispered carefully. Everything. I know how you poisoned me for years. I know how you smiled while I died. I know how you carried Zhao Jingyan's child while my blood soaked snow. But instead, I simply said, enough. Silence. Then suddenly, Shen Yurong stood abruptly. The gentle younger sister disappeared entirely now. What remained was ambition stripped bare. You think His Highness truly cares about you? She asked coldly. Ah, there it was. Or said that. He notices you constantly, she snapped quietly, even after choosing me. Interesting. So Zhao Jingyan's attention already destabilized her this badly. How fragile. I tilted my head slightly. And that frightens you? Her expression twisted. For one brief moment, the mask shattered completely. Hatred flooded her eyes openly. I hate you, she whispered. Such honest words at last. I smiled faintly. I know. You always had everything, she hissed. Legitimate daughter status, father's praise, noble reputation. And yet, I interrupted softly, you still weren't satisfied. Her chest rose unevenly. No matter how much I took, people still looked at you first. Ah, so that was the truth. Not love, not ambition alone. Envy. Lifelong envy. Pathetic. I stood slowly, then walked toward her calmly. She instinctively stepped backward. Interesting. Even she felt something dangerous from me now. I stopped directly before her. Then let me give you one final warning, second sister. My voice remained soft, gentle, almost affectionate. If you want Zhao Jingyan, keep him carefully. Her eyes shook slightly. Because once you hold a venomous snake too closely, I smiled, it eventually bites. Then I walked past her, conversation over. But just before reaching the doorway, I paused briefly. Without turning around, I added quietly, and next time you poison me. My fingers brushed lightly against the hidden silver needle within my sleeve. Make sure I don't survive to return the favor. Behind me, for the very first time,
Shen Yurong looked genuinely afraid. After that night, Shen Yurong avoided me for nearly half a month. Not openly, not enough to attract attention, but I noticed. She no longer appeared casually in my courtyard. Her gifts stopped arriving. The endless bowls of nourishing soup disappeared. Even her carefully rehearsed smiles became less frequent. Fear had finally entered her heart. Good. Fear made people careless, and careless people exposed secrets. The capital, meanwhile, remained busy discussing only one thing: the Crown Prince's upcoming engagement. The Imperial Household Department had already begun preliminary preparations. Court officials visited the Shen Manor constantly. Gifts flowed like water. Congratulations arrived daily. Madame Chen practically floated through the manor. Even my father, Shen Guowei, appeared increasingly pleased with Shen Yurong. As I watched all this unfold, one thought remained constant in my mind. The Shen family was walking toward the same cliff, just more happily than before. This time, however, I intended to prepare before the fall, and that required money, not ordinary money, real money. Enough money to build influence, enough money to purchase loyalty, enough money to survive when noble titles became worthless. Fortunately, my previous life had left me a gift, a secret no one else knew, including Zhao Yangyan, including Shen Yurong, including the Emperor himself, a hidden treasury. 3 days later, we reached Qingfang Valley. The place was beautiful. Ancient pines covered the mountainsides, mist drifted lazily between rocky cliffs, a narrow river wound through the valley like silver silk. At first glance, nothing appeared unusual, exactly as intended. The hidden treasury had survived untouched for generations precisely because it looked insignificant. Bai Ji stared around nervously.
Miss, yes? Are you certain we're in the right place? I stepped down from the carriage, then looked toward a weathered stone formation near the riverbank. 3 standing stones, 1 broken, 2 intact, exactly as I remembered. Yes. My heartbeat slowed. Excitement, anticipation, perhaps even satisfaction. The future was finally beginning to shift. I walked toward the stone formation carefully, then counted 23 steps east, 7 north, 4 west. Bai Ji watched with growing alarm. Miss. I ignored her. My fingers brushed across an ordinary-looking section of stone, then stopped. There, a faint carving, almost invisible. A phoenix. I smiled. Found it. Using a small iron tool hidden within my sleeve, I pressed against the carving carefully. A soft grinding sound echoed through the valley. Bai Ji gasped. The stone wall moved, slowly, silently, revealing darkness beyond. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then Bai Ji whispered, "By the ancestors." I almost laughed. Her reaction was understandable. An entire hidden passage had appeared within a mountain. Anyone would be shocked. We lit lanterns, then entered. The tunnel descended gradually. Cold air surrounded us. Dust covered ancient stone walls untouched for decades, perhaps centuries. The deeper we traveled, the stronger my heartbeat became. Not from fear, from certainty. Finally, the passage opened into a vast underground chamber, and Bai Ji nearly collapsed. Gold, silver, jewels, ancient artifacts, rows upon rows of treasure illuminated by lantern light. The chamber seemed endless. Even I paused briefly, because although I remembered the treasury, seeing it with my own eyes again remained overwhelming. Bai Ji's mouth opened and closed repeatedly. No words emerged. I understood. There simply were no words. Enough wealth rested before us to change kingdoms, to fund armies.